I could barely breathe from the lack of oxygen and still had 3,400 feet to go to reach the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. It was 1 a.m. Tanzania time, and with headlamps on, we ventured out in nearly 0-degree weather, sort of like now, with more butterflies and food in our bellies after spending 6 days on the mountain, sleeping in tents with no showers. As a slight germaphobe, no showers is extremely uncomfortable. The following 6 hours or so were spent crying and trying, not to die mostly, fearing and cheering, and climbing and surviving, barely. In my head, I kept hearing one of my favorite quotes by Neil Donald Walsh. Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. I was trying to smile through my frozen cheeks as I thought, man, this is absolutely the second most uncomfortable I've ever been. Anybody meditate in here? We hear a lot about the power of breathing when you're trying to meditate. In fact, anything that's anxiety-inducing in life, they say you breathe through it and you get calm. I'll tell you what, at 16,000 feet, the last thing you want to do is focus on your breathing. It felt like even though you're walking at a snail's pace, you're going full speed at full incline on a treadmill. Zero oxygen up there. Instead, what I did was focus on the lessons I learned over those 6 days. Lessons in the power of vision, in determination, in faith, and the most important one, in the power of vulnerability. I'd only made it that far because I was focused on the mission. I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew, more importantly, why I wanted to do it. You see, I'd been called to this mission and invited to be there by God to change the life and the world for a small Maasai boy named Sipao. My climbing that mountain was going to help reset the cycle of poverty that he and his family had been in for generations. I had an opportunity to do that, and I could not let him down. I remember watching the newly reminted 3D version of The Lion King, and that iconic opening scene where the clouds break and it reveals Mount Kilimanjaro, and my then 2.5-year-old granddaughter Chloe pointing at the tippity top and saying, "Mima, that's where you're going, right?" I made a promise to myself that I could not let her down. I had a picture of Sipao hanging on my backpack for the 7 days that we spent on that mountain. It was very clear to me what I was there to do. For anyone here who hasn't yet figured out what you want to do and why you want to do it, I suggest that you get working on that right away. Please believe in your dreams. Please believe in your ability to achieve them, because the minute that God plants that seed of a dream in your mind, you already have everything that you need to accomplish them. All you have to do is get out of your own way. Fight back the negative. Surround yourself with dreamers. Surround yourself with people who believe as much in your dreams as they believe in their own. Surround yourself with people who set your soul on fire. And above everything else, be that person who encourages others to dream. One of the biggest lessons was about determination and the importance that we must have a stick-to-it attitude when we're in pursuit of anything that we want to accomplish. One of my greatest authors of all time is Og Mandino. And he said, "I can accomplish anything if my determination is strong enough." I was determined because I knew what I was there to do. So the third day of our climb was an especially grueling and hard day. We'd already been hiking for 12 hours, and we knew we were not going to make it back to base camp before nightfall. Nightfall meant temperatures were dropped to very uncomfortable lows, meant that if not for the light in our headlamps and the stars and our amazing guide Masu, we were done for. During one of our much-needed breaks, Sophie, who was my hiking partner that day, asked me, "Berta, what's your plan B? You know, if you don't make it." I simply said, "Sophie, I didn't bring one. I don't believe in plan Bs. If I don't make it, it's because I'm dead. And my family knows what to do with the body." I really had that conversation with my family. I knew that I was on a mission and failure was not an option. I was either going to summit or I was going to die trying. And I had no problem with that. Any plan B people in here? Nobody will admit it now. Please get rid of your plan Bs. They will serve you for nothing. To me, plan Bs are like prenuptial agreements. It's a precursor to failure. Rid yourself of them and focus on the determination to do whatever it is that you need to do. As I was preparing for the climb, people would ask me, aren't you scared? I'm a big subscriber of the thought that Eleanor Roosevelt always says, do one thing every day that scares you. So I don't let fear get in my way. Do you know that we're only born with two fears? The fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. That's it. That's it. That's what we get when we get here. Everything else is in here. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. What's in here ceases to exist the minute that you face it. That's the life expectancy of fear, is only until you dare to face it. My mom is here. My mom is afraid of the dark. Always has been. So when I was a baby, newly potty trained, I'd have to get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. But that meant traversing a long hallway in the dark, because turning on the lights was not an option when you live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment and there are 8 of you. Turning on the lights meant everybody woke up. So when it was my turn to go to the bathroom and I'd say, Mommy, I have to go to the bathroom, she'd say, go ahead, God is with you. It was one of the greatest gifts she ever gave me, because I'd go do my business and come back. So now when I'm off to go flying or skydiving or mountain climbing or off to a far-off land on my own on a mission trip, she says, aren't you scared? And I say, no, God is with me. Thank you. Fear is a lie, people. It is an illusion and a fantasy that we create in our heads, and it ceases to exist the minute that you face it. There is nothing more empowering than facing your fears, folks. I promise you. And I encourage you to do it at every opportunity that you get. I told you that was the second most uncomfortable I had ever been. Because I'll be honest, there was nothing more uncomfortable than one day standing in front of the mirror and not recognizing the woman looking back at me. I was working too many hours in a successful business, which I loved, but I knew that I wasn't contributing what I should be contributing to this world. I was in the typical staleness of a then 25-year marriage that neither of us were paying much attention to. We'd raised 2 amazing kids. We were caring for our elderly mothers. I was full of empty. I was crawling out of my own skin, and the face looking back at me was screaming, do something about it. Now, what I love most about that level of vulnerability and nakedness, aren't you glad that this wasn't about nudity, but about nakedness? Was that whether on a mountain or in front of a mirror, that uneasiness was the catalyst that helped me to grow, change, and dare to live my life the way I wanted to live my life. The life that I knew I deserved. Did you hear those words? Repeat after me. I deserve it. I deserve it. I deserve it. Please use those words often, because you do. We all do. And it is important to remind ourselves every chance that we get. I don't say this from a place of conceit or feeling of entitlement, but the older I get, the more I realize the importance of believing in better for ourselves. And as most postmenopausal, pushing 50 grandmas out there, we're just getting started, right? I want to take you back to that mountain for just a second. Because just when we thought we couldn't take another step from the concrete-like heaviness in our boots, the burning in our quads, and the lack of oxygen in our lungs, we reached the sign signaling we'd arrived at Uhuru Peak, 19,341 feet above sea level. There we were at the peak of the highest freestanding mountain on Earth. I was standing at the roof of Africa, fulfilling a promise I'd made to a young Maasai boy named Sipao, that I would climb that mountain to help him climb out of poverty. That day, that smart, funny, crooked smile little boy whose life I was supposed to change ended up changing mine. Thank you.